Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Canadiens Connection Podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. Welcome to the show, episode 321 of the Canadiens Connection Podcast. My name is Amy Johnson. I'll be your host for today's show, titled Help Wanted. There's a Help Wanted sign that's been hung on the front door of the Bell Center. The Habs confess, quote, "The mood is heavy." Dun, dun, dun. It's going to be an interesting one today, and I am absolutely pleased to be joined in the studio by my co-host, who is the founder and president of Rocket Sports, Mr. Rick Stevens. I'm going to go ahead and say that I bet that you are doing better than the Canadiens are doing today.
Well, I can tell you the mood isn't heavy here.
No, the mood isn't heavy where I am right now. For those of you who don't know, I live in eastern Pennsylvania, and I am not exaggerating. It has been close to 7 weeks since we have had rain here. We are in a severe drought in all of Pennsylvania, but particularly central to eastern where I am located. And I am looking out my window at the first drops of a big front that's coming through that is going to dump about a half an inch of rain, and I'm like ecstatic.
Better rain than snow, which is some parts of the north are getting. But that's all right too. And listen, it's November. It's the Remembrance Day on Monday, the Hockey Hall of Fame weekend.
Yep.
And just a few weeks away from American Thanksgiving, that milestone point considered for the National Hockey League. So
gravy.
Gravy, yes. Yes, gravy.
Oh.
And it's a rare Sunday recording, just to change things up a bit.
Well,
I'm missing my Vikings versus the Jaguars. I think they'll be all right.
They are the Vikes are currently up 3-0. Oh!
No, don't tell me.
Jacksonville just scored a touchdown.
No, don't tell me. Well, they'll
7-3 Minnesota.
I have faith.
Okay. Well, we'll keep tabs throughout the show.
Started Sammy Darnold in fantasy for the first time.
Well,
we'll see.
We'll see. It's going to be a good show today, folks. Don't despair. The Canadiens might not have been very fun to watch this past week, but we're going to have a fun show for you today. We're going to get you caught up on the roster news. We've got some great prospect news for you. And as we say every week now, if you want some happy hockey news, just listen for our Laval Rocket report, because they're actually continuing to do very well. We're going to hear from Hall of Fame inductee Shea Weber in our first segment as well. But then in our second segment, it is Prognosis Negative.
That's just for me. That's a Seinfeld reference.
I was going to say, or anyone who follows Seinfeld really closely.
Yeah, that's only for me and my brother. Prognosis Negative.
Prognosis Negative.
And it applies.
It applies.
It applies.
We're going to talk in depth in our big topic segment this week about how suddenly, this isn't funny anymore.
Mm-mm.
Not that it was funny to begin with, and the people on this podcast right now, and a lot of the people listening to this podcast certainly didn't have any grand, illusions of grandeur or big expectations for this season, but this is bad. It's getting really bad.
We expected them to take a step forward, whatever that meant.
And in our big topic segment today, we are going to explore whether or not it's starting to feel like they've not done that, but instead have taken a step back, maybe, which is not what we want to see either. No. So we're going to explore that a little bit and try to make sense of it. I think because that's the big thing right now is I think that's where a lot of the frustration for Habs fans is coming from, is because it doesn't make sense. Make it make sense.
Yeah.
We're going to try. Then in our third segment, we've got some great comments from some of you from last week's show that we are going to read. And that's a reminder for you. This is an interactive podcast. We absolutely love to hear from our listeners and our viewers. We know there are plenty of you who are listening on your favorite podcast platform. We know there are plenty of you who are watching on YouTube, and we love to hear from all of you. So the way to submit a question, give us a comment, answer the Canadiens Connection question of the week. A couple of ways to do that. Easiest way, if you're on YouTube, just drop a comment down in the comment section. Or everybody can text us any time of the day or night at our Rocket Sports text line, which is 5853-ROCKET, 5853-ROCKET. And, of course, you can always drop us a comment on any of our socials, at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And we want to hear from you. And as we do every week in our third segment, we pick out some of the best responses that we've gotten and read them right here on the show the following week. So send them in. Let's hear it. The Canadiens played 4 games since we last met. 4 games. No. Yeah, they lost all of them. If that's my... That's my really quick summation, but we'll talk about them a little more.
Yeah, we're not going to go through individually
They got a point against Calgary.
Well, and listen, maybe that's not... It's good to get the point, but the Flames came into that game struggling. Pittsburgh game, more of the same. The New Jersey game... it's tough to see Jonathan Kovacevic in the lineup playing well, getting big minutes, playing the penalty kill. It was fun to see in the pregame warm-up, Jake Allen on one side of the blue line and Caden Primo on the other side, talking back and forth. But the Canadiens are allowing the first goal. They're allowing goals in bunches. They've given up 3 or more in 8 straight games.
Gave up 3 goals against Pittsburgh, 3 goals against Calgary, 5 against New Jersey, and 4 against Toronto. Yeah,
they're not getting very good goaltending, and that's been primarily Sam Montembeault. He's not giving them a save when they need a save. Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield are pointless in the last 4 games. They're without points. They're not pointless. You know what I mean? They are without the points.
No, at this stage, they might be pointless.
It's Brendan Gallagher. Brendan Gallagher is holding up his end of the bargain. Jake Evans was terrific against New Jersey.
But come on, in the Toronto game, they got 2 shots in the first period, and what?
5 shots in the first 30, I think.
It's ridiculous. You can't win games like that.
Mike Matheson, he's without points in the last 5. They aren't scoring, and that's because they've changed the system to protect, and now that's not giving them the same number of opportunities. But against the Leafs, if you're going to complain about injuries, look at the Leafs. They're without their best player in Austin Matthews. They still look pretty good.
And Pacioretty went down in the first period and didn't come back, and he's been pretty good for them.
The Toronto Maple Leafs had 4 high danger scoring chances, according to Natural Stat Trick, 5-on-5 the entire game, not just the period, the entire game. And Sam Montembeault had a tough time. The Leafs scored special teams. They scored a power play goal. They scored shorthanded. They're losing in a number of different ways, and the excuses just aren't. The excuses just aren't cutting it. And as David Savard said, the mood is getting heavy. So we're going to talk about that in the second segment.
So that means the Canadiens are currently riding a 6-game losing streak. We'll see how doing a Monday lunchtime game works for them.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Veterans Day in the States. The game's in Buffalo. Remembrance Day in Canada, Canadiens with 10 points so far this season. That puts them 31st. They're actually tied with the San Jose Sharks. And the only thing that is very different about that is, the San Jose Sharks weren't proclaiming that they were going to be in the mix this season. So
in the mix for the first overall pick.
Montreal has the league's worst goal differential currently, and on pace somehow for a 74-point season, although that's going to be difficult if they continue these long losing streaks. You mentioned 6-game losing streak, and looking back to last season, they never had a 6-game losing streak last season.
And last season was bad. Last season was not good, but they didn't lose 6 times in a row. Oh. Make sure, I know it's painful on game nights, but you do want to keep apprised of all the latest news and things happening. So be sure, don't forget, follow us on our socials. At Rocket Sports is the best place to follow us on X. We certainly want to make sure that you stay in the loop, particularly for news as it comes throughout the week in dribs and drabs. And this week it was Monday. The Molson Cup recipient was named for the month of October, and it was Cole Caulfield. And that's nothing to slight Cole Caulfield's achievements. There wasn't a lot to choose from for October, but Cole Caulfield certainly deserved at least, the scoring that had finally put together in October. It's dried up a little bit here in November, but the scoring that he had been able to put together in October was encouraging, to say the least.
10 goals, and that's great. That's terrific. He needed to get back on the scoring wagon, and he's done that. 10 goals puts him tied for about 9th in the league in goal scoring. Kucherov leads with 11 goals. I think there's a couple of others, William Nylander as well. But it was interesting that a week or so ago, Marty St. Louis said, what's his shooting percentage? And it was like 30%. Mm-hmm. Marty said, that's not going to continue. He's leaving a lot on the table, and he needs to be better. And that was interesting because that's when he was, flying high, scoring goals. But Marty's right on that. And
a week later, things have changed.
Yeah. And that whole line is struggling, and it doesn't matter who they put beside Cole Caulfield or Nick Suzuki. Kirby Dach has struggled. Yuri Slafkovsky is having a tough season. It's congratulations on the Molson Cup. That was for October. We're into November, and he needs to turn things around a bit. That line needs to turn things around a bit.
That's right. And so in light of how the last week has gone, maybe it's good for Oliver Kapanen that the Canadiens decided to not burn the first year of his ELC, and they opted to loan him back to Timrå IK in the SHL in the Swedish Hockey League before he hit his 10-game mark here in the NHL. But that is what happened this week. And as a result of that, Lucas Kandata then recalled from the Laval Rocket to fill in.
Yeah, actually, he got into 12 games. So
he did get into. Sorry, that's my fault.
They let that.
So they did.
They let that go.
See, this is why I listen to the Canadiens Connection podcast. You learn things. 2
assists in 12 games. He looked pretty good at times. I thought he looked fine, but I guess rather than have him play limited minutes and on a struggling team,
yeah.
That they decided to send him back to Europe, and he'll be fine over there. He'll get lots of minutes. He gets lots of opportunity, and I think edged out a little bit by Emil Heineman. And Heineman's now taken his place on the second wave of the power play, that of Kapanen. So Kandata recalled in his place. Many Canadiens fans were expecting Joshua Waugh. And Joshua Waugh has gone a bit, well, you know this better than I do. In Laval has gone in, he's playing well, but it's a bit of fits and starts, and there's been some inconsistency.
He's doing well. I think he's better off staying there.
The games that he's playing well, he looks great.
Yep.
And there has been some inconsistent efforts. So leave him there. The other thing you'll notice is that Joshua Waugh, of course, is a winger. Lucas Condada is a center.
Yep.
And the Montreal Canadiens needed a center. Why is that? Because Kirby Dach has been playing wing. Mm-hmm. And the questions, when the trade was made, it was obviously made, and the resources given up were obviously given up for a center. The Canadiens assumed they were getting a center. I think it's still an open question. Is Kirby Dach going to be a center in the National Hockey League or a winger? Marty St. Louis was asked that question this week. He said, I don't know. So the Canadiens are still open on that question. They still don't know. And when we look ahead, and this possibility of, a top 5 draft pick again, maybe the Canadiens need a center, and maybe the Canadiens need a number 1 center. Mm-hmm. And that Nick Suzuki might be a good complement on a playoff bound team. Anyway, Marty St. Louis said, question's still pretty open on Kirby Dach, and I think that's the main reason that Lucas Condada was recalled.
That makes sense. I just hope they figure it out instead of this constantly shuffling him back and forth, because I'm getting really bad Alex Galchenyuk flashbacks. And we just don't want to go there. Patrick Laine. Here's some good news. Patrick Laine was on the ice at Brassard this week, skating alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's very encouraging.
Good to see him out there. Now, he was scheduled to be back kind of early December. Is he a little ahead? Is he on schedule? I don't think we know that yet, but good to see him on the ice. And it's just a reminder that in a month, the Canadiens will expect to have Patrick Laine in the lineup. They will have available, if they choose to put him in the lineup, Raphael Harvey-Pinard. He has been skating with the team. It's said that he's still 3 or 4 weeks away. And there's a lot of talk this week about the fact that, he hasn't played for a while, and he's likely going to need a conditioning stint in Laval before his return to the Canadiens. He's waiver eligible, so not going to send him there for long, likely a conditioning stint, a few games, 3 games maybe. And then, in the next 3 or 4 weeks, expect to see 2 new forwards added to the list that Marty can choose from.
That would be good. That's at least hopeful. Carrie and Angela Price this week announced the launch of the Price Family Foundation on Instagram, saying, quote, "Our mission is both heartfelt and impactful to nurture our communities, uplift families in their journeys, and create meaningful change through giving, connection, and personal growth."
So you might already know that Carrie and Angela Price have the Carrie and Angela Price Foundation, and that was formed mainly to support the Breakfast Club of America. They've given tens of thousands. Breakfast Club of Canada. What did I say?
You said America.
Sorry.
I'd like for us to have a Breakfast Club of America. I just want to give Canada its due.
Yeah, Breakfast Club of Canada. Sorry. And they've made that a priority in recent years. Well, they've started a second foundation. And if you want to find out some information on it, go to pricefamilyfoundation.ca. And on that website, you'll see that their statement, as a family, we're focusing our energy on philanthropy, using these moments to educate our children, inspire our neighbors, and contribute positively to our communities. So if you want to send them words of support, if you have a few dollars to make a donation, a very worthy charity, a very worthy foundation, and you can certainly read more about the mission and what they're after. And there's some great family pictures and pictures of them helping others. So that's pricefamilyfoundation.ca.
Wonderful. We love that. All right, let's switch gears and check in on the Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world.
This week, not only will we have an Ivan Demidov update as we do every week, he is going to be the guy that we spotlight this week because he's absolutely doing tremendously in his 25 games for SKA St. Petersburg. 6 goals and 13 assists so far for 19 points in those 25 games. He's doing a great job. I think people are constantly going to question his deployment and his usage and his ice time and all of those kinds of things. If he thought, if he had any inclination that the microscope wouldn't really hover over top of him until he came to North America, guess again. Because all eyes are constantly on Ivan Demidov, but really, 19 points in 25 games is nothing to ignore.
And give him credit for performing well on the ice and off the ice too. With all this controversy around him, he continues to say the right things, and has a positive attitude. We've told you that Kent Hughes and Bob Ruff and a few members of the organization are scheduled to go spend time with him, visit with him, watch his games. But from afar, you can only admire him at his young age, being able to handle the pressure of being in this tug of war, more or less, between two organizations or a fan base and a KHL organization. It's fascinating, and at the same time, his coach, Roman Rotenberg, in my eyes, he continues to throw a bit of gasoline on the fire.
Well, he's like he can't help himself.
He can't help himself for the poor kid to endure. And, I know it's people use the word cringe a little bit too much, but if you saw the press conference this week, post-game, Roman Rotenberg in the center and flanked by two SK St. Petersburg players, one of them being Ivan Demidov. And the video is just really cringy. And poor Demidov, the expression on his face as his coach is going on and on and on. He can only... it's just kind of go along with everything.
Smile and nod and sure,
nod,
coach,
and
whatever you say,
coach. Yeah. So Rotenberg tried to draw a comparison between himself and Demidov. And he said, this is a translated quote, but Ivan Demidov, Rotenberg speaking, Ivan Demidov wants to be better, right? He's 18 years old. He's young, he's cheeky, he's talented, but he has things to work on. I also try to improve my work every day, and I give the team more than other coaches have given in the past, or that any other coaches can give. It's a competitive spirit, and you can't win without it. And looks at Demidov and kind of, right,
yeah, sure.
Wow, it's cringy. It's really, yeah.
Well, then the press coverage continued because Sergei Demidov had an interview with...
No relation. We've said it before. No relation between the journalist
Sergei Demidov and the player Ivan Demidov. Sergei Demidov with RG.com. And so he had an interview with Ivan and talked about how Ivan says that his transition has been assisted by none other than NHL veteran Evgeny Kuznetsov, saying, quote, this is Ivan Demidov talking, saying, quote, he's very experienced. After each game, he says, you must immediately forget about it and turn the page. Good or bad game, it doesn't matter. You must live in the present and prepare for the next game.
You were almost going to jump into a Russian accent there. I felt it.
And then I was like, that would be a bad idea because Russian is one of my worst accents. It would be very bad.
But very complimentary of Kuznetsov and learning from an experienced NHL vet.
Absolutely. Demidov goes on to say, Ivan Demidov goes on to say, yes, I would like to win Rookie of the Year, but I haven't really followed other rookies in the league. My focus right now is on the fact that we're on a 4-game losing streak, so my personal goals aren't really important.
Team goals, that's smart. He's saying the right thing.
Yep.
That's what you want.
He also mentions he does pay attention to some things because he says, I really like Lane Hudson. He's playing brilliantly.
Well, you remember those two met at the draft.
They did.
And there was a really nice picture and video of the two of them. And he still keeps his eye on the Montreal Canadiens. He acknowledged that the Canadiens are in a bit of a funk. He said he's not worried about them. They'll turn things around, but that he really likes Lane Hudson, as you said. And then Sergei Demidov, the journalist for RG.com, went on to interview Roman Rotenberg. And Rotenberg has a long quote about Demidov. And he says, quote, if we compare Demidov last season when he was with us at the beginning of the season at training camp, and now they're completely different hockey players. Now he's a player ready to win battles and fight men equally. He's ready to win battles against any player in the KHL. That is, he has improved in absolutely all aspects of the game. And I can honestly tell you that not only his hard work and our good work with him in this summer helped him development, but also his partners. And by partners, he means line mates. I will, and this continues, Roman Rotenberg, I will honestly tell you that there are no line mates today in Montreal as Ivan has in SKA. And this allows him to develop as a player and a person. There are no such centers in Montreal, no such wingers. Of course, opinions on this may differ, but this is my opinion.
I'm just going to throw the gauntlet down and then I'm going to say, but hey, it's just my opinion.
Wow. Wow.
I basically just said, sorry, Montreal, you can't compare to what I've got here in the KHL. And so Mr. Demidov is much better off here with my club in his development than he would be there.
So double down, triple down, whatever. My goodness.
I think he might have some insecurity issues.
He certainly doesn't like the negative comments that he's been hearing. No, that's for sure.
He does not. All right. Some other prospects have been noteworthy as well, and those are the ones playing for the Laval Rocket. Laval did something historic for their franchise this week. They broke their previous record for win streaks when they won their 7th game in a row last weekend. They extended that even further by winning an 8th consecutive game in the shootout on Wednesday night. Logan Mailloux with the clincher in the shootout. Nicely done. And so first time in Laval Rocket franchise history that they have had an 8-game winning streak. And sadly, that came to an abrupt end on Saturday night when they lost a very close 3-2 matchup against the Belleville Senators. So the Rocket have been doing very well. They are at the top of the North Division right now. They are second in the AHL. In the entire league, they're sitting at number 2. The game that they lost on Saturday night is just the second time this season that they've lost a game. They lost the second game of the season and hadn't lost another game since the second game of the season until last night, until Saturday night.
This is the team that has a very young lineup. This is the team that sprinkled with veterans that is heavy on Canadiens prospects. Mm-hmm. This is a team with a new coaching staff. that was maybe expected to struggle at the beginning of the season. They're
haven't
not
done that.
They're not
so far. They're doing very well. There is one area that I think this week they fell a bit short on that they could have been better, and I'm gonna use that as a teaser to say you've got to tune in to Rocket Hockey Report on YouTube, our YouTube channel, where I'll get into that this coming week. And I did. There is a new Rocket Hockey Report out from Thursday. So just go to InsideTheCanadiens.com, check out that. That's where I give you a weekly in-depth kind of recap and analysis of how the prospects are doing, how the Laval Rocket's doing, and all good things, basically. I mean, one loss on Saturday night in a 1-goal game. I'm not going to get too concerned about that. So great things for the Laval Rocket. Great thing for the prospects as well. Joshua Waugh is doing very well. Logan Mailloux is doing very well. Owen Beck is doing very well. Sean Farrell, just all good things for the future.
And if you haven't been following, we should mention Jakub Dobes was terrific at the beginning of the season, but out with injuries. So they're doing this. They've continued to play well in the absence of Jakub Dobes.
Yes. Connor Hughes has stepped in very nicely. Connor Hughes has played all the games that Dobes was not well enough for last week. Dobes backed up Connor Hughes on Friday night. They won that game. Dobes played on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. They did happen to lose that game. I don't think the two things are correlated. No. But yes, I agree with you. Dobes has performed very, very well. The ECHL affiliate, the Trois-Rivières Lions, they are continuing on. They've actually managed to get a couple of wins along the way as well. They won in overtime this week against Wheeling. They've been, even when they're managing to not get the 2 points, they've been eking out a couple of points this week just by getting to extra minutes. They did lose in a shootout to Adirondack this week. But overall, they're doing all right. They are 4-3-1, 9 points so far, kind of sitting right in the middle of the pack with the ECHL.
And they had a tough start. Took them a while to win their first game, but they've been involved in 1-goal games all this week and brought themselves up to middle of the pack in the ECHL.
Now, I should say that you mentioned at the top of the show it's a big weekend in a number of ways, and it's a big weekend for hockey. Every year, Hockey Hall of Fame induction weekend. And there's some really admirable people going into the hall this year. This class, I like this class. And Canadiens fans, I think, are very proud to have one of their own going into the hall. And that is, of course, Shea Weber being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame this weekend. And so when the Canadiens are back in Montreal next week, they are going to have a pregame ceremony ahead of their Saturday game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, honoring Shea Weber.
Yeah, inducted into the Hall of Fame. And you mentioned that class. It includes Weber, Jeremy Roenick, Pavel Datsyuk. Those are the headliners, I'd say.
Yeah.
And they receive their rings, and the ceremony itself will happen on Monday, and then the Ring of Honor a little bit later at the Bell Center. So, Shea Weber, quiet. People didn't always get to know him, but he was very much appreciated by his teammates and respected. One of the best captains, one of the best leaders. I think the 31st captain of the Montreal Canadiens, and I think, and this again is going to be a guess, I think the 61st member of the Canadiens into the Hockey Hall of Fame. So a real honor, and Weber is respected by current teammates. Brendan Gallagher has spoken about him. Jake Evans. Weber has stayed in touch with Nick Suzuki, and Carey Price penned a bit of a tribute for Shea Weber. You might want to read that. That's on the NHL.com website that it came out on Sunday.
Shea Weber, one of the things I always very much appreciated and respected him for was how humble he always was as a player, as a captain. He was one of, he's just undeniably a tremendous defenseman, a tremendous leader, but none of that ever went to his head. And you can hear that part of Shea Weber's personality. He did an interview. Part of the ceremonies is some interviews with each of the inductees and so forth. This response we're gonna hear from Shea Weber here in just a second, and his answer here on his reaction to being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, it to me just was completely Shea Weber.
My feeling when I found out I was going to the Hall of Fame was disbelief. I just was shocked. I didn't expect a call, didn't know it was an option, and it took a while, and I think this is the weekend where it's finally starting to sink in a little bit. Being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame means a ton. This is a special weekend, and I can't describe enough of the feelings, or the words aren't really coming to me to say how much it means, and just to be looking around at the names and faces in here, it's a special thing.
Completely overwhelmed, and he said that he got the news while he was on the golf course. He couldn't believe it. He said he dropped to his knees, his head in his hands. And the thing is that when you get that call, you can't tell anybody.
No.
So there he was on the golf course with his foursome. There was a foursome behind that was had kind of caught up, and he couldn't play the next hole or so. He was just so shocked to receive the news. He later tried to phone his dad and couldn't get the words out, and his dad's like, "What's wrong with you?" Humility when he played the game, and that continues.
The media tour continued for Shea Weber. He actually sat down with Renaud Lavoie for a television interview, and I liked this response. Lavoie asked him if he still keeps. Lavoie confirmed, you still keep in touch with some of your former teammates and so forth. And Shea Weber was very exuberant about the fact that absolutely, yeah, I still watch these guys.
Yeah, it is tough. I pull for those guys. I still talk to those guys, and it's hard for me to see them. It's almost like I'm still there. Every time I look at their box scores every night, and if I see they lose, I'm just, I'm a little frustrated, and you're helpless. You can't really help them, but I'm pulling for them, and I hope they can get it going and get on a little bit of a roll, and make a push for it.
He's still competitive, and that's frustrating for him. That he wants, if his body would allow him, he would love to be out there and still playing. And he said, he finds that tough. That if he was tired of the game, or maybe it would be easier, but it's just the fact that he still has those he still wants to feel part of the team, and does at times, and just can't go. He gave everything he had, as did Carey Price, in that Stanley Cup run to the Stanley Cup final, and the description of what he had to go through, the number of injuries, the number of serious injuries. And taped up like a mummy, as he said, hours before each game in order to that he could be in the lineup. It just shows his heart and his passion for the game and for his teammates. He wanted to be there with him. The other thing that he spoke about was his first game at the Bell Center. And he said he was pretty nervous because he had been traded, the big blockbuster trade that happened at the draft. PK Subban for Shea Weber, and he said he was well aware of the fact that Subban was a fan favorite. Were the Canadiens fans going to boo him? What was going to happen? And they gave him a really warm standing ovation, and he knew at that point that everything was going to be all right.
Everything was going to be all right. So congratulations to Shea Weber and all of his fellow inductees in this year's 2024 Hall of Fame induction class. Boy, the Winnipeg Jets are kind of making a statement. They have set an NHL record with 14 wins in their first 15 games of the season.
Yeah, not a franchise record. That's an NHL record, which you give even more respect to that. Connor Hellebuck set a franchise record with a shutout streak of close to 192 minutes. They are playing well, and certainly toss them in here because I know that they are at the beginning of the season. They usually find some way onto your Stanley Cup contender list.
Yeah, I don't remember. Did I?
And I don't. I think you left them off this year for the first time in ever.
It's naturally going to be what happens. I place like a 25-cent bet every year, and I usually say that the Winnipeg Jets are going to win the Stanley Cup. The one year that I probably didn't is going to be the year they win it.
Yeah, they're off to a great start.
Absolutely. Kind of the unsung part of Hall of Fame weekend is that it's also the early season GM meetings the day after the induction ceremony. The GMs usually stick around in Toronto and have a couple of hours that they get together and kind of set the table for what will likely be discussed in full accord in the March meetings down in Florida. And so they will meet on the 12th. Elliot Friedman talked about this on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night. And he reported that one of the things that might come up, that might be discussed, is the amount of time that it takes and that is allowed for video review. And that apparently some GMs are getting frustrated with there was an example during the Philly game the other night where there was a puck that they didn't know if it had hit the netting or not before a goal. And I think the time for review, Friedman says, was just over 5 minutes. It was like 5.5 minutes that it took to review. So replays might be on the table in terms of, do they regulate it? I don't know.
I know you can pull these examples out, and they're wanting games to move along. They're wanting for TV broadcasts and for the fans in the building. But it's more frustrating than a 5-minute video review.
Not
getting the call wrong.
That's right.
That's more frustrating.
Yep. I agree.
So Friedman said, you got to get the call right. I agree. And talk about it. Talk about, maybe technical reasons that will, technical tools that will help speed up these reviews. But you got to get the call right.
You do. In probably the biggest news in the world of hockey this week is the fact that the NCAA Division I Council on Thursday did finally and officially approve a rule that will allow players who have played in the CHL, they will be eligible to compete at U.S. colleges in the NCAA program effective of August 1st next year. And this is going to change so much in terms of young players in the world of hockey.
Yeah, and it may change things in ways that we haven't really figured out yet.
Yeah.
What happens to the USHL, which is a feeder league to the NCAA, if for Canadian players who typically would bypass the CHL and go to the USHL to then make it into the NCAA.
Right.
What about the BCHL? What about U Sports? There's going to be
What about athletes that already have commitments or scholarships?
Yeah, there's a really good article on collegehockeyinc.com that asks questions and answers them, and it's really detailed. There was one question about I've received swag from a CHL team, and free caps and t-shirts and whatnot. What if I then go to the NCAA, what do I do with it? And the answer is you got to give it back. You either have to donate it to charity or give it back. I mean, it's that granular, the questions, the implications. So if you want to know what's going to happen, I'd recommend it's a good website, collegehockeyinc.com, to understand this issue. But as I said, there are going to be things that we don't understand the impact until this is implemented, and that's going to be August 1st, 2025.
I even saw something this week that player agents for players in the CHL are already now starting to consider, do they need to start getting some of their players sponsored deals, brand deals, like getting names out there. There's so many different facets, as you say.
And you're going to start seeing, in advance of this, there's been some recruitment done. I think there was one player who's kind of come out and said that he has a deal in place. I expect that there's a dozen, 24 players who already have sort of deals in place that we're expecting this to happen, and you're going to start hearing those announcements about commitments to fall 2025 enrollments for Canadian players.
And you're starting to see some player movement as well. Players who, this goes to what you were saying, players who are now leaving the USHL or the BCHL and heading to a CHL team, knowing that there's no longer that gatekeeping,
restriction, yeah.
Right? So it's all the changes. It's going to be a tumultuous year, I think. Just circling back quickly as our last news item here before we head to our first commercial break. Circling back to Elliot Friedman, he also reported on Saturday night that the 2025 Four Nations face-off rosters, the rosters, I believe, are due in by the 2nd of December, but they will not be announced until December 4th. But we will finally know the rosters for the four teams, U.S., Canada, Sweden, and Finland, who are taking place in the Four Nations tournament. We'll know those rosters on December 4th.
Will there be any Canadians on any of those four rosters?
I don't think it's going to be Sam Montembeault.
Yeah, I think Sam Montembeault has played himself out of
I think so.
Consideration, and he's had a tough start. Nick Suzuki, I think, is still probably under consideration. He would probably be the only hope for the Montreal Canadiens. Of course, for Team Canada, there'll be former Canadians. I think Lehkonen will probably be on there, and maybe some others.
Yeah.
But at this point, I think there might be only one hopeful. There's still reason to watch that. It should be great hockey.
I think it's going to be fun hockey. Yeah.
But
absolutely, probably
one Canadian, if Nick Suzuki makes it.
All right. Well, with that said, it's perfect time to take our first break here on the Canadiens Connection podcast. We have some tremendous offers right now from two of our sponsors, both our friends over at DraftKings, and just for this month, some really incredible deals and promo codes just for our listeners over at Raycon. Great way to get your Christmas shopping started. So we're going to send it over. Actually, we're going to send it over to me because I'm going to be the one that's going to tell you about those deals here in just a moment. But when we come back, it is Prognosis Negative, and we are going to talk about what is going on with the Canadiens and have they taken a step backwards? Is like what's happening? What is going on? What is the mood? Who should be held accountable? Let's answer some of those questions and talk about how we feel in the next segment. But first, we will send you to break. And we look forward to seeing you on the other side. Stay with us. You're listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio. Oh boy, it is November. And you know what that means? Black Friday and Cyber Monday are just a few short weeks away. And it's such an exciting time of year. With Raycon, you get an amazing deal on premium audio products every day of the year. But hey, that doesn't mean they're not having any sales for Black Friday or Cyber Monday. No, far from it. Guess what? They're actually doubling down on their amazing value by offering our viewers up to 30% off site-wide. My favorite product of theirs, Raycon's Everyday Earbuds. I use these earbuds every single day. Plenty of new features that make them kind of more of a must-have for audio lovers. There's now a 32-hour battery life on them, and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at once. Having good noise cancellation can be difficult to find with a pair of earbuds at a really accessible price point, but not with Raycon's everyday earbuds. Raycons start at just half the price as the other guys, which was what was really surprising for me the first time I tried the everyday earbuds, because I'm a voice actor by trade. So I have some pretty high quality headphones, both over the ear and in-ear earbuds, from some pretty big names. And I was really surprised at how good the quality of the Raycons are, particularly given their price point. So they're already an incredible deal before you even factor in their Black Friday or Cyber Monday offer of up to 30% off site-wide. Those kinds of deals at those kinds of prices means you could pick up a pair or 2 of Raycon's everyday earbuds as an amazing gift for somebody for the holidays, and also pick up a pair for yourself as well. I mean, why not? Now is the perfect time to scoop them up if you haven't done so already. And don't worry, if you're not as impressed with them as I am, don't worry about it. Raycon offers a 30-day happiness guarantee, so you really can't lose. It is time to save big for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Go to buyraycon.com/THPN today to get up to 30% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 30% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/THPN. The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck's dropping on the 2024-25 season. Get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking your favorite team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers, bet just $5 and you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved. And welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio. Once again, I'm Amy Johnson. So glad that you're here with us today. If you'd like, you are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter/X. You can find me at Flyers Rule, and you can follow my Laval coverage there, which is primarily what I put out over there. With me in the studio, of course, is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. Be sure you're following him on X as well, at Rocket Sports, and follow our podcast at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Don't forget to hit subscribe, whether you're listening on a podcast app or if you are watching on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell if you're on YouTube. Hit the share button. Hit the like button. Leave a review. All the things. This is all of your homework. It takes just a second, and of course, we really appreciate all of that.
I hear some munching in my headphones here.
I had to go get a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Really?
I'm still working on the Halloween candy.
Did you have any Junior Mints?
No.
I think I've only had them once in my life.
They're gross.
Are they really?
I'm not a like Junior Mints. I don't mind Andes mints that are like the chocolate with a little bit of mint on the top of them. But the inside of like Junior Mints is kind of like the inside of a York peppermint patty. Okay. It's just that like chunky mint. It tastes like toothpaste. I don't like it.
It just came to mind because we're talking about prognosis negative, and yeah, Elaine's boyfriend Roy was having surgery, and
Kramer.
The Junior Mint went up during the surgery. Kramer lost the mint, went in, sealed, staved off the infection, and it was a miracle. Prognosis. But before that, Elaine came in and said she was worried about Roy because prognosis negative.
Prognosis negative. That pretty much describes the Canadiens right now in the midst of a lengthy losing streak. They're at the bottom of the standings, just a month into the season. And I really, this is not what management, I don't think, had in mind when they boldly predicted that the Canadiens would be in the mix at the end of this season. I think that phrase is going to come back to haunt them because it wasn't well received when it first came out, that first week. Well,
I think initially it was because it gave some hope to Canadiens fans, and they, as we've said before, it was vague enough that they could interpret it in their own way, but it quickly became a phrase that was mocked, and it's, they had spent so much time carefully crafting this message and having meetings and what fit, and it's gone sideways.
It really has. And for me, the excuses aren't working, and the typical excuses that they like to trot out, whether they're trotting them out currently or they have in past seasons, I'm sorry, they fall flat. The lineup is really young. Well, okay, every team has youth in their lineup, and quite frankly, some of the younger players on the team are actually the ones who are showing some heart. Bad luck. There's no phrase that I hate more than puck luck. I can't stand that phrase. I understand that sometimes, yes, puck luck happens, but you can't blame a 6-game losing streak on bad luck. You can't blame it on officiating. You can maybe in a single game sometimes, but you can't blame a ride like this on officiating. You certainly can't blame injuries at this point. No, yes, you'd love to have Patrick Laine on the ice. But injuries aren't the reason that you're putting out lackluster performances that look like you're not really trying very hard, that look like your players are confused and not sure what to do next. Anyway, the excuses aren't working. So at this point, Rick, is this a point where we have to look at kind of an overhead shot and say, has the team taken a step back? Are they no longer going in the right direction? We understand development takes time and that there's going to be highs and lows and forward and backwards in player development. And we certainly understand that not every year, not every game during a rebuild is going to be positive. But overall, this year this feels like a worse team than it was last year right now. As a whole.
As we said, they didn't have a 6-game losing streak last season. All of the excuses and many of those excuses were used this past week. The bad luck, talking about hitting posts. The opposing teams have hit a lot of posts as well behind the Canadiens goaltenders. Officiating, Marty this week said, better better left unsaid. But clearly he was unhappy and was directing some blame their way. But again, this is Marty St. Louis has generally used up all the levers that he has, all the tools that he has, the inspirational tools, the motivational tools, the punishment tools, and it seems grasping for some way to explain what's happening, and it's caused. There was an article in TVS Sport. Jonathan Bernier asked the question: are the Canadiens going backwards? And so, is this a year of regression in the rebuild for Montreal? Is I think what we have to explore, and just listening to the players. David Savard was as angry as I've seen him, and in French, he was the one that said the mood is heavy. Kirby Dach could barely speak. He speaks in low tones
on the best of days.
Yeah. And he said nobody's happy with the results we have right now. We're in this together, and we're going to have to get through it working together. But he was really down. And here's Josh Anderson, and his reaction to the mood of the Canadiens locker room.
I don't know. What do you think? Like, it's not great right now. But we're still trying to be positive right now. Trying to still find our swagger and do the right things. And like I said, once we find one, we'll be fine.
That's been the message from Marty this week: is win one and things will snowball. The players have been repeating that, but listen to how that started. I'll play it again. He's just searching for words, searching to make sure that he doesn't sound too negative, but it's like, you guys know what's happening as well as we do.
I don't know. What do you think? Like, it's not great right now.
What do you want them to say?
What do you think?
Yeah, it's awful.
And then after that, it's like my first reaction to the second half of that clip was, "Are you trying to convince us or yourself that if you just win one, that things will be fine and you'll get your swagger back?" And
I think they're a long way from swagger.
They're a long way from swagger for sure. It's obviously there's a lot of dejection. Obviously, there's a lot of probably anger and frustration. And they're already, it's only the beginning of November and they already sound completely weary of having to answer the questions of what's the problem, because I don't think they have the answers necessarily.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of fans are now starting to look to the coaching staff for answers. And we talked about this. Marty St. Louis has been a topic of ours for the last couple of weeks in various forms. First, it was him sounding off against his first real taste of criticism in the media and so forth, and his reaction to that. Last week, it kind of doubled down on it a bit and got, seeing how he was reacting to the team's performance, the bag skate that happened, and his admonishment of the team and so forth. But now fans are really losing their patience with the Marty St. Louis experiment, I think, in some instances. And that faction of Habs fans, of the fan base, is getting a little bit louder, and some are really starting to say, does this guy really have the answers to take the team to the next level? Is Stefan Robidas the right guy to help take the team to the next level? And I think that noise is going to get louder and louder the longer that this scenario and streak with the Canadiens continues.
Yeah, louder and growing. I think more people are wondering, why is he above criticism? Why should he be excluded? And there has been this aura built around him of Marty St. Louis, and that's because I think that he created a very fun, a very positive atmosphere when the Canadiens were expected to be at the bottom of the standings. He motivated the team. He helped some players, not others, find their games. And but a coach is more than being a motivator. There's a number of aspects to coaching, teaching, being a person who sets strategy, game planning, all of those kinds of things. A coach has to be multifaceted, and I think the criticism is that he's a single talented coach, and you can understand that when you look. Just a reminder, the experience. Marty St. Louis had no NHL experience, coaching experience. Yes, he dropped in on a couple of practices for Columbus as a skills consultant. Yes, he was behind the bench for his kids' minor league hockey. And similarly, Stefan Robidas, midget AAA in Magog. That was his experience, and then a consultant with the Leafs. The most experienced bench coach the Canadiens have is Trevor Letowski, and his experience didn't come from the NHL. It was in the OHL with the Windsor Spitfires. So I think that you're going to run into these situations with a very inexperienced coaching staff. They've been together a long time now, but I don't see anybody bringing new ideas. There's one person who is directing the bus, and they need somebody with NHL experience and outside ideas. And I think Marty's a little. He likes to control the narrative. He likes to control the direction. He likes to, try the trendy things. We'll talk about the hybrid system without maybe somebody saying, yes, but are we the right team to implement it? Do we have the right teaching methods? And so at this point, you have the Montreal media on one side saying Marty's not on the hot seat. And that may be true. But there has to be, of Marty and the entire coaching staff, a lot more accountability, and really, our help wanted. That's directed in a lot of places, but also I understand mid-season you don't go out and find an experienced NHL coach to add to your bench. That's in the off season, and that's why we were saying, if you listen to any of our summer shows, how concerned we were when Burroughs was moved out of the coaching staff, and there was at least one vacancy. And Kent Hughes was asked about it over and over and over again. He said, "We're waiting for Marty. Marty's going to decide." And it wasn't until the end of the summer, Roger Grillo, and no NHL experience there, was added as a consultant. So that's why we were so concerned over the summer, is that a major appointment wasn't made.
And I won't apologize for this opinion. Marty St. Louis has reached a point in his NHL coaching career that he is 100% eligible to be held accountable. He's no longer a rookie head coach in the NHL. He's been with the team as their coach for a number of seasons now. In fact, when you look at the list of tenure for NHL head coaches across the league, he's actually sitting in like the top quarter of that list, meaning he's one of the oldest tenured coaches in the NHL right now. There's been a lot of coaching turnover in the last couple of years. He's definitely, I believe, within the top 10. I think he was at number 6 at recently over the summer, like the 6th most tenured. So he absolutely is eligible for criticism and accountability at this stage. I know that might not be a popular opinion with the fans who support him. And I'm not saying that I'm not supporting him being successful. I'm simply saying that he can't be viewed as hands off, the golden child, you can't touch him because it's all, positive vibes only from Marty St. Louis. We've reached a stage that things have to be questioned, and no matter what the answer to that question is, whether it's no, it's not Marty, or yes, it is, it's absolutely warranted that people can ask questions and should demand questions and accountability at this stage.
And I don't. There's no talk about the Canadiens firing Marty St. Louis at this point. None whatsoever. They just extended his contract, but he needs help. It's we're talking about addition, not subtraction here. He needs, number one, he needs help, and he needs to be open to ideas that are not his own. I think that what we're seeing, and there are some fans who are saying, "Oh, the players don't care; they don't have heart." I don't think that's it at all. I think the players do have heart. It's not a lack of caring. It's not a lack of effort. It's there, and Marty acknowledged that they're playing with a lack of confidence. I see them as playing tentative. You can't play tentative in the National Hockey League. You can't play safe in the National Hockey League. And they just look confused. They look like they're thinking about things. They look like they're trying to make the right decision, the play that the coach wants them to make. But it looks like they're trying to implement a plan that they don't believe in, that they don't believe can be successful for them. And that's why they aren't confident in it. It's not to say that the coach has lost the room. I don't think that's the case.
No, I don't think so.
It's just that they need a new approach.
They need a new defensive system. Is what they need. We've talked about this as well ad nauseum the past couple of weeks, that this hybrid system that Marty has tried with them, the players, it's not computing. It's not computing for them in their execution of the game. It certainly isn't computing when fans, media members, pundits, whatever, watch it on the ice. There are people that are literally saying out loud, who are experts in hockey, what are they doing?
And we've tried to explain to you as well as we can the difference between a man-to-man coverage system in the defensive zone, a zone coverage system, and this new hybrid system that the Canadiens, that Marty St. Louis is trying to implement. We've stressed that just because the hybrid system is won the Stanley Cup 4 out of the 5 last seasons, I think, there are different hybrid systems. One size doesn't fit all. There's different hybrid systems, and some teams, like the Toronto Maple Leafs that the Canadiens met on Saturday night, the Edmonton Oilers, they have given up their hybrid system, and it's something that may not fit the lineup that you have, the roster, or may not be. You may not have the coaching staff to be able to teach it properly, and so we've explained it. But I think there was a really detailed explanation in a Sportsnet piece this past week. It's by Andrew Brewer, who's been involved in coaching from New Brunswick to the National Hockey League. The title of the piece is "Why the Montreal Canadiens Need to Change Their Defensive System and Go to a Zone from the Hybrid." And he explains it with diagrams, with video clips. It's well worth your time to go through it. But it's the hockey community is pleading with Marty St. Louis to make a change.
Now, as you said, there's not even the slightest hint that a change in terms of the coaching staff is going to come anytime soon. But I will say, so far, Pascal Vincent has been very effective at the AHL level. And Pascal Vincent does have NHL experience. At the end of this year, or maybe even after season 2, depending on how this year goes, I'm encouraged by the fact that there will be, for the first time for me, in the last 5 years or so, for the first time, there is someone leading the charge in Laval who I could legitimately get behind as maybe getting promoted down the line to the NHL in Pascal Vincent. It wasn't going to be JF Uhl for me. It wasn't going to be Joel Bouchard either. But Pascal Vincent has me hopeful that maybe down the line he could be an answer. I don't know if it's as a head coach or as an assistant coach, but he's been effective so far. And he has a good track record of working well with players. And so, we'll see how that goes, but it's something I'm certainly keeping an eye on because, as we say, the AHL is not just a development league for players. Coaches and staff and officials get their calls up as well. So
when the announcement was made for Pascal Vincent, we had a show. I've followed Pascal Vincent's career and even more detailed than myself. It was Patrick Williams, and we had him on the show, and we talked about his lengthy experience and his ability to develop players, his ability to teach, his ability to put players in situations to let them grow. And he's doing just that. And yes, we want him to continue that and to stay in Laval and to develop these young players. There may be a time when he is an asset as an assistant coach on the bench of a Marty St. Louis led coaching staff, and with a plan, a transition plan where eventually he could become, but that's down the line.
Way down the line, yeah.
The interesting part for me is, and we're talking about replacing Marty St. Louis. We have the evidence that Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes don't like to rock the boat. With Alex Burrows, it was clear to everybody on earth he didn't have the experience and he wasn't getting any better. He wasn't having a positive impact. He needed to be fired. He wasn't fired. He was reshuffled elsewhere in the organization. It seemed that Hughes and Gorton didn't want those headlines. Similarly, we talk positively about Pascal Vincent, but Gorton and Hughes fell backwards into that.
They did.
Because you remember that they extended, even if after it was clear last year that JF Uhl wasn't the guy, and we didn't want him within 10 feet of any kind of Montreal Canadiens prospect. He preferred his veterans. It was Hughes and Gorton that re-signed him. Yes, they re-signed him, even though that would have been an awful move. Mm-hmm. And then it was JF Uhl who decided to go to Clarkson, leaving available, and just so happened that Pascal Vincent was still available to accept that. So I don't see the management making waves with respect to the NHL coaching staff either.
So it's really comes down to what now, what's happening, and where does it go from here? And our Canadiens Connection question of the week, we feel your frustration, we hear your frustration, and here's what we want you to answer this week for us is, in your opinion, have the Montreal Canadiens taken a step back in their rebuild? Or do you think what's going on right now is a natural kind of part of a rebuild? Or do you feel that they've legitimately taken a step back in the rebuild process? And who should be accountable? It's kind of a two-part question. Who should be accountable for the results so far this season, and particularly if these kinds of results continue much longer into the season. Don't forget, we want to hear from you on our Rocket Sports text line, 585-3-ROCKET. Leave us a comment on our YouTube channel under this video if that's where you're watching, or send us a message on social media at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. It's tough. I think what makes this most difficult is that there isn't just one answer. There isn't just one thing that's wrong.
That's right.
There's a multitude of things that are wrong. And so trying to sift through all of that and determine which area that's in trouble takes the biggest priority and who's accountable for that area and how do you fix it. There's a lot of work to be done. But it is early in the season. They have plenty of time, but they've got to get it into gear now. So give us a shout and let us know if you think the Canadiens have taken a step back in their rebuild, and if so, who should be held accountable. We are going to take another quick break here. We're going to give you a message from our new sponsors over at Game Time, who have a really great incentive and some dollars off for your next ticket purchase for a game or concert. You're going to want to check that out. And when we come back, we are reading some of your best responses to last week's Canadiens Connection question of the week. You don't want to miss that. Maybe it's yours that we've selected this week. You never know. So stay with us. You're listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.
Getting back to watching Habs games on TV most nights of the week is pretty fun. It's even better when you can experience the Canadiens live. Whether they're at home at the Bell Center or on the road, Game Time will have you covered this season to get you the best opportunities for great deals on seats to see your favorite NHL team live. Game Time sets itself apart from other third-party ticket sellers in a lot of ways. You're going to filter out all the fluff with the Game Time app, and you're just going to get incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste a lot of time sifting through thousands of ticket offers on other apps. So let's just take a look here. And I'm just taking a look at their interactive ticket map, and I'm seeing that ticket prices on Game Time are starting at $62. I'm even seeing, though, if you want to get down in the reds, there are tickets under $200 down in the reds, and I'm talking like in the lower third of the reds. There are some great deals. What else do I love about the app? Seat views before you buy. If there is one thing that I am obsessive about when I'm buying tickets for a hockey game or even for concerts and shows and things like that, which Game Time also has tickets available for, I want to know, particularly if it's at a venue that I'm not necessarily familiar with, like say I'm checking out a Habs game on the road, I want to know exactly what my view from my seat is going to look like. And Game Time, its app, has a really cool feature that you get a panoramic example of what your seat that you're looking at purchasing will look like before you get to buy it. Lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection. They even have a feature that you can toggle on their app called all-in pricing, which shows the complete total to buy the tickets up front, including any taxes and fees and things like that, so that you don't get any surprises at checkout when you think, oh, well, let me just buy these tickets for $100, and then you go to checkout and it ends up costing you $180 or something like that. You know, you're going to get all-in pricing right up front. Lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Love that. And ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets, whether it's for the NHL or for a concert or a show. Take the guesswork out of buying those tickets with Game Time picks. And we've got a great incentive for our listeners. Thanks to the folks over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. It's free. It's simple. All you have to do is punch in your email address. I just did it today. And use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
And welcome back to episode 321 of the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio. Don't forget, follow us at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Visit our website if you ever want to get caught up on past episodes. If you happen to miss one, you can do that at canadiensconnection.fm. And naturally, most importantly, we want to hear from you. Text us anytime on the Rocket Sports text line at 585-3ROCKET.
Talking about NHL insults in the break.
Yeah.
No different than
Elementary school
11-year-old insults. Yeah.
Basically.
Max Domi, we're thinking of you.
Yes. Throwing some really profound insults at David Savard this weekend.
Yeah.
Doing at one stage in my time here at Rocket Sports, I did a ton of still photography when we would travel quite often to cover AHL games and sometimes some ECHL games as well. And so
between the benches,
so being a photographer, I would either be on the glass, obviously, but sometimes I got to be between the benches, and it is honest to God, it's the most entertaining. It is. I was between the benches in the ECHL between the Brampton Beast and the Reading Royals in a playoff game. And if you think it was probably the most entertaining hockey game I've ever experienced, just listening to the insults being hurled back and forth between the benches. It was fantastic. All right, I digress.
David Ling was pretty good at that.
Yes. David Ling always was. I could hear him the most because he would always park himself at the very end of Brampton's bench so that he was the one who was sticking his head in my field of vision to yell down across the bench. And thankfully they were not censoring themselves because there was a lady present, and I would be ticked if they did. But yeah, he could give Max Domi some tips on some insults. All right. Don't forget, whether you are watching there now or not, be sure you head over to our YouTube channel, InsideTheCanadiens.com. That takes you straight to our YouTube channel. Tap the subscribe button. Not just to get the Canadiens Connection podcast on YouTube, because we also have other videos that appear there as well. We don't want you to miss them, and that's content that you're not going to get anywhere else on any of our other platforms. And so this past week, we had last week's Canadiens Connection episode titled Canadiens Players Who Need to Step Up Their Game. And then on Thursday, I had the most recent edition of the Rocket Hockey Report out, titled Montreal Canadiens Prospects Dominating Leaderboards. And that is something you definitely want to hear about. The prospects are not only, I said this in the first segment on the show today, the prospects in Laval are not only doing very well, but they're doing well league-wide in comparison to their teammates across the league. So check that out as well. Be sure you hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. Also, if you're able to, what's really helpful for us, if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to leave a review, whether it's tapping a like button or leaving a 5-star review or a comment, that really helps us so much, because the platforms take all of those kinds of viewer and listener interactions and that helps them to say, oh, people enjoy this show. Let's share it with more people. And speaking of sharing, that is the easiest way to help us, is just tapping the share button and sharing this episode on any of your socials or on Reddit, anywhere that you think other Habs fans would really enjoy getting to listen to the show. So don't forget, our Canadiens Connection question of the week that we want to hear from you about this week is, have the Canadiens taken a step back in their rebuild? And who should be accountable if you think that they've taken a step back? Last week, we asked you if you would be satisfied if the season results in another top 5 draft pick for 2025. Who knew it would be a foreshadowing of of what was to come this past week that maybe it would be first overall draft pick in 2025. But no, the question was, will you be satisfied if this season results in another top 5 draft pick for 2025? And Rick, we had some great responses.
Yeah. We'll just note that certainly when you're responding, if you can tell us your first name and where you're from, that will certainly help to make sure that your message gets read. One of our Rocket Sports text comments this week at 5853-ROCKET comes from someone who didn't leave their name. They're from the London Windsor area. That's all we know. And the text was short and sweet. Give me a top 5 pick. Wanting another top 5 pick in the 2025 draft. And we know that the Canadiens are, well, they're going to be all right, even if they don't get one.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, as always, we have great comments from our viewers on YouTube as well. Leonid is back again this week. Do you want to take Leonid, or do you want me to take Leonid?
Yeah, I'll read Leonid. He usually sends us an email. He left a lengthy comment on YouTube, and he said, I watched the discussion of, Leonid's from St. Petersburg, by the way. I watched the discussion of defensive problems, and there's one thing that surprises me. When the coach works successfully, say for 20 years, he has a strong argument. He has worked successfully in different places. His system has worked here, there, and everywhere. Therefore, he will build the same system because it's what he was signed for. He goes on to talk about giving examples with NFL teams or even in soccer. And he says their systems have proven over the years of successful work in different places. This argument is not indisputable. In our case, we have no evidence that the current coaching staff is even capable of building the system that is so much talked about, that being the hybrid system in the defensive zone. However, the players have to adapt to a system in which neither the forwards nor the defenseman nor the goalie feel comfortable. Perhaps statistically, the team's defense is not the worst, only one of the worst. But in fact, no other defense in the league looks so terrible. And this is understandable. A hockey player's mind is constantly struggling between what he wants to do and what the coaches asked him to do. A precious second is lost, and now the opposition team is celebrating a goal. And the defenseman looks like he's playing his first game in the NHL. But is the defenseman really to blame for this? I'm afraid that the system will be changed closer to the end of the season, just when the players adapt to it.
Yeah.
And you can't be caught thinking out there. Not in the National Hockey League. The play moves too quickly. Great points made by Leonid once again.
Absolutely. We also have a comment, another great comment from frequent viewer and commenter, Center Heist 7948, who says, great show again. My apologies. I meant to leave a comment on the previous show, but I got busy. Hey, we all do. No worries. We knew you'd be back. As far as this week's question, I'm totally fine with us getting one more top 5 pick. I'm not shocked or disappointed that we haven't progressed, but I know the mistake was the organization telling the fan base Habs would be in the mix for wild card, LOL. I knew that was a premature comment from the owner through the executive to coach. I knew that was trouble because this fan base is far too smart for that. The organization caused this firestorm. They need to live with the fans' backlash now. It's forgivable, but let's hope they learn the lesson of speaking too soon. And let's hope they learn well, because the players sure haven't learned 100% effort every night, and they can't learn a defensive system that's been jammed down their throats. Keep the great topics coming. Loving the show. P.S. However, I did expect baby steps in progress. Another great comment.
Well, I'll be interested to hear from Center Heist on this week's question, and that is, are they still taking baby steps forward, or is it started going in reverse?
That's right. As I said in the first segment, they're going to find out real quickly if this losing streak is going to continue, or if they can finally, as Josh Anderson says, get that one win that they need to change direction and get some confidence back. because they are playing at 12:30 in the afternoon on Monday, Remembrance Day and Veterans Day. 12:30 in the afternoon on Monday when they play in Buffalo, and then they play again on Thursday, yes, in Minnesota. So they're playing the Wild on Thursday.
8 p.m. start there,
That's
so
right.
non-traditional start times for both of the games this week.
That's right. Of course, we will be back next Saturday, November 16th, with another episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast. Until then, I just want to say, in terms of Remembrance Day, thank you to all who have given the ultimate sacrifice, both for the United States and for Canadian Armed Forces as well. We certainly remember you, lest we forget. And also in honor of the United States' Veterans Day celebrations this weekend, a big tip of the hat and thank you definitely to every veteran of the armed services in both of our countries. Thank you for your service. Thank you for putting yourself at risk, and we appreciate you.
And thank you to the Toronto Maple Leafs, who the pregame ceremony
It was really
on
nice.
Saturday was beautiful.
Yeah.
Finding several 99 and 100-year-old veterans, and they all, my eyes welled up watching that ceremony.
Yeah, definitely. They were great to see and great to be introduced to. So thank all of you. Hope you enjoy your week, and let's see if we can get a Canadiens win to chat about next Saturday. But no matter what happens over the course of the week with the Montreal Canadiens, you know that we are going to be here next Saturday, November 16th, talking about the ups, downs, and everything in between. And we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much. You have been listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.